I get a lot of questions about how exactly Ryan was murdered, so I thought it would be a good idea for me to tell a little bit of the story. About a week before Ryan died, we met up for Valentine's Day. It was a very normal day. He lived about 2 hours away from me at the time, so we drove halfway and met for lunch. The next weekend, he had our kids up in Auburn. They went hiking, they went and looked at waterfalls, and he was sending me pictures. Everything seemed very normal. When he dropped them off to me, he let me know that one of our mutual friends had contacted him asking him what he was doing on Valentine's Day because he had had his house robbed. So Ryan let me know that he had asked about that, and he was very concerned. And I just brushed it off and didn't think much of it. Fast forward to February 22nd, the day that Ryan was killed was that night. He had some friends over at the house. I wasn't aware of what was going on. I did talk to him a couple times that day. Seemed like nothing very eventful. I talked to Ryan that night of the 22nd. We got on the phone. I talked to him for about an hour. I kept hearing somebody come in and try to talk to him. Ryan kept saying, "Hang on, I'll be right there. I'm on the phone." And I asked him who it was, and he said it was just his friend that was trying to have a conversation with him. I talked to the person that we were friends with who had his house robbed later on after Ryan was murdered, and he had let me know that that day on the 22nd, he sent a text message to Ryan with a picture of someone taking fingerprints off of a TV at his house. Now, the person who had his house robbed was very aware at this point that Ryan had been with me, and so he suspected that the person who ended up murdering Ryan that night was actually the person that robbed his house, which is why he was sending the messages to Ryan, because he knew that that guy was there. So in theory, it would make sense that Ryan showed those pictures to this person, and that if this person did do that, he would be getting upset by this. So we got off the phone on the 23rd. It had been after midnight at this point, and we had actually gotten into a little bit of an argument. I hung up the phone on him, which obviously I regretted very much after the fact, and he texted me after he went and sat down on the couch for a minute, and shortly after that, it must have been right in that moment that he was attacked. There's a lot of different stories that came out of the witnesses, but I'm going to tell you a few of them. The one thing that was very clear across the board in the moments right before Ryan was murdered was the statements that Brandon was making when he came out from the other room. And that was, "I'm not going back to jail. I'm going out like a mother effing gangster." Everyone was able to agree on that. There was some discrepancies about where he came from. Had he been sitting at a table right behind the couch? Did he come out from the back room? But he did enter the space, had a knife in his hand that was a double-edged serrated 5-inch blade, like a hunting knife, and was being erratic and scaring people, making these statements. One person said that Ryan actually stood up and tried to take the knife away from him. Another person said that he was never even able to stand up off of the couch. The detectives told us that Ryan really appeared to be a hero and was trying to obtain the knife from Brandon so he wouldn't hurt anyone. Unfortunately, that obviously didn't happen. Ryan sustained 18 major stabbing wounds to the right side of his body, his face. He cut off his ear. He severed his cervical spine. He punctured his lung, and he had no chance to live. Brandon then quickly fled the scene and grabbed his girlfriend, who was outside smoking on the porch and had not seen what had happened. She had no idea that Ryan was dying on the floor. And she got in the car with him and they left. So now they're fleeing the scene. The girlfriend still was not aware of what happened until Brandon claimed what he did. And he said, "I killed him. I effing killed him. I killed Ryan. We're going out like Bonnie and Clyde. You're my ride or die." And this girl described a lot of fear that was going through her body at the time. She had no idea what had happened and she was so scared. So she was trying to get out of the car and get him to stop the car, and he wouldn't, so he started strangling her. She said that she had choking wounds on her neck that did not go away for weeks after that because of the level of aggression that Brandon took when he grabbed her. She was able to escape the car. I think she threw herself out of the car and went and hid in the bushes. Brandon continued to evade through multiple counties. They were able to finally stop him with a spike strip and with a dog that pulled him out of the car. He was also able to make a phone call to his mom during this whole process. The one thing that was also very clear from all the witnesses that there was no altercation. Ryan was never, in any kind of a aggressive stance with him. There was no fight. There was nothing going on. So we later had to put the pieces together of what even could have possibly happened because this was just so strange. And for me, having been on the phone with him just prior to this attack was very hard for me to comprehend that it could even happen. And I wanted to go and see Ryan. I wanted to be there with him, even though he had passed, and I was told that it wouldn't be a good idea because he was so badly mutilated. The events I've been describing in my last two videos happened in 2012, which is over 12 years ago now. I know a lot of you were confused, so let me clarify some things. At the time, my husband of over 10 years, Ryan, and I were separated, and we were in the process of working on our marriage and reuniting our family. Ryan had been doing really well, and he was sober at the time of his death, which was confirmed by the coroner, and we were on the brink of putting things back together.
It was clear that he was motivated to turn things around, which makes what happened even harder for me to process. That opportunity was stolen from us. Ryan was brutally murdered that night. To address another point of confusion, when I mentioned that Ryan received a call from our mutual friend about his house being robbed, I slipped my words slightly, and just keep in mind that this is the most difficult story that I have to tell, so I am doing my best, and I'm going to try this part again. Our friend called to let Ryan know that his house had been broken into, and so to this day, the person that committed that robbery has not been caught. However, our friend strongly believes that the man who killed Ryan, Brandon, was responsible for that robbery. What we believe is Ryan told Brandon that the police were taking fingerprints to identify the thief, and that could have been the trigger. Brandon, who was supposedly in a drug-induced psychosis, according to the specialist that he saw, could have been paranoid and enraged. He attacked Ryan while shouting, "I'm not going back to jail. I'm going out like a motherfucking gangster." And no one has been able to make sense of that, nor does Brandon address those statements today. Ryan's life was horrifically taken in a senseless act of violence. And yet Brandon served just 11 years and is now out of prison, promoting himself as a Christian life coach. He's presenting himself as a redeemed survivor of his own story, and people are buying into it. The reason that I'm sharing this now is because I cannot sit silent while violent offenders are glorified and the truth is being erased. Brandon has even gone as far as to attack me for speaking out, posting screenshots of news articles about this story and calling me hateful. This only proves how little accountability he's taking for his actions. This is not about hate. This is about truth, accountability, and honoring the life of a man that Brandon took from us. Brandon's actions today, his lies, his lack of remorse, and his attacks on me only confirm what I already know. His redemption is nothing more than an act. This has all been incredibly confusing and painful for me, as well as I was not there that night. Like many of you, I have tried to piece this together through witness testimony and the aftermath of Ryan's death. Ryan was a loving father, husband, and friend, and the fact that someone like Brandon was in his circle is devastating to us. I'm sharing this because I believe in speaking up for those who can no longer speak for themselves, and because the truth matters. The morning after Ryan's murder, I got a phone call that nobody should ever have to get. It was late morning, and I remember thinking that it was really strange that I was just now finding out about this because it had happened almost 12 hours ago. The person on the other end was frantically saying to me that Ryan was murdered last night, and those words honestly didn't even make sense to me. I could not process them. She had to repeat it several times before it even started to sink in for me, and I ended up on the floor, painfully grieving and shocked by myself. Throughout that day, while friends and family flooded into my house, I made phone calls to everybody that I could think of, desperate for answers about who this person was that killed him and why, because I had never heard of him before, and I got nowhere. Ryan's mom didn't even get a phone call that morning before she turned on the news and saw her son's house that was just around the corner from hers on TV. I honestly cannot even imagine that. To this day, I can't comprehend the cruelty of her finding out that way and just scrambling everywhere to get the phone. From that moment, everything became a blur. I was overwhelmed by grief and shock, and I could not even really take in new information. There was so many questions that I had, so many details about what happened that night, and I could barely focus on what was being said to me. My mind and my heart were just in complete chaos. When Brandon was in custody, we were told that it would be an open and shut case and that we wouldn't have to worry about him going away for a really long time after what he did. So that did give us a small sense of relief, like justice would at least be served for Ryan. But then his mom hired a private attorney, and suddenly we were told that there would be a plea deal for only 11 years. And I was devastated by that. At the time, we didn't fully understand our victims' rights and if there was anything that we could do to stop it. I felt like everything was happening behind closed doors, and we were being told to accept it with no questions asked. It felt like everything was out of our control, like the system was just working against us rather than for us. It was crushing knowing that his life was worth so little in the eyes of the system. And at this time, I felt like I had no choice but to go along with it, hoping that at least it meant in some kind of way that we would get accountability out of him. Now, seeing him out profiting off of his actions, it's clear that justice was never truly served. From the start, Brandon felt that he deserved to be out as soon as possible. At the time, I thought I had 11 years to prepare myself for this day. But here we are now, and instead of staying quiet, Brandon is coming out loudly, building a platform, telling his version of the story, and even profiting off of it. Meanwhile, my sons, who can't even remember the sound of their father's voice unless I play them a video, now know Brandon's voice all too well. And that's a pain that I cannot even begin to describe. I knew in some way I'd have to step in 11 years later, and this is why I'm here now telling this story. This is the kindest way that I can deal with this, because trust me, many other ways have crossed my mind. I refuse to let the truth be buried, and I refuse to let my family's pain be ignored. This is my way of taking back control and standing up for Ryan and for my kids and for the truth. It's my way of ensuring that his story isn't being rewritten by someone who took everything from my sons. This has been one of the hardest parts of my life to share, but it's important to me that people understand the full scope of what we've been through.